The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, coming to Cordless, everybody. It's Tuesday night, June 30th, 2024. God, I got the volume on my headphones way too high. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters Tonight. This is episode number 142, if you're keeping score at home. Now, here's the deal. We're not taking any phone calls tonight. This is a long story. We're testing out some new equipment here in the studio, and because of that, we're going to have a shortened show. It's only going to be about 40 minutes long. We do have a guest, though. We already taped this afternoon. Tom Paladino is going to be here. He's a scalar light researcher. More on that in a minute. Tomorrow night, though, I'm encouraging you to call in because it's our 1-year anniversary show. We started July 31st, 2023. Yeah, 2023. And tomorrow is July 31st, 2024. It will be our 143rd show. Jeff Meyer, our sponsor, CEO and publisher of Calling News, is going to be here. Santa is going to be here. He checks in with us. Here's the deal. People don't check in with Santa during the year. And I thought, well, that's stupid. We had Santa on. Santa was supposed to be on our show the night before Christmas. Actually, it was the 23rd. Our last show before Christmas, and he couldn't make it. So we had it on, I think, the first show or the second show of the new year. It was either the 3rd or the 4th of January. And I'm talking to Santa after the show, and I'm thinking, well, how come no one talks to Santa during the year? Like, what is he doing? Don't we want to know? Yeah, we want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. So yeah, Santa's showing up. Now, we were going to have him on once a quarter. So it's been 6 months, but we'll touch in with a base on it. You will figure out what he's doing, and then a whole bunch of other people who are regulars here hopefully will call in. You can put a gun to their head, and I want you to call in too. So tomorrow night we're gonna have a call-in show. We have no guests other than Santa and Jeff. Other than that, they don't matter. Yeah, sure, right. But anyway, I want to encourage you to call in tomorrow night. But tonight, no, we're gonna have a shortened show because we're doing a little experiment here. Stuff's going on, but we did the interview with Tom Palladino this afternoon, so we're going to play that in a few minutes. So next week, on the 7th of August, next Wednesday, Martin Willis is going to be here, and he is the host of the Podcast UFO podcast. That's what it's called. It's called Podcast UFO, and I think it is I think it's the single most popular UFO podcast in America. So he's going to be joining us and going to tell us what he knows. So that's what we got going on here. I talked to Tom Palladino this afternoon. Like I said, we're going to play his interview in a few minutes. So you'll listen to this. This is really this guy's devoted his life to this, and it's fascinating because as I put in the show description on the places that carry our show, I'm starting to think, listening to Tom and talking. I talked to a whole bunch of scientists on the show, pseudo and otherwise. I won't call them pseudoscientists, but some of you might. Like we had Ashton Forbes on last week. He's the guy who propagates the theory that the reason Malaysia Flight 370 in 2014 disappeared is because the U.S. military teleported it in midair to another location. Now, that sounds far-fetched, but he's got an enormous amount of evidence to back this up. I mean, a ridiculous amount. I got friends who watch this show who don't buy any of the science UFO stuff we do at all. And you know, the really amazing thing about that is, and this has come up several times. I got people now who buy the UFO thing, but they still don't buy Bigfoot. And you would think that in the grand scheme of conspiracy theories, you'd think the UFO thing would be at the very top. But no, like Steve McIntosh was on last week. He's a philosopher, or 2 weeks ago or something like that. And he said at the end of I don't know how we got talking to it. At the end of the interview, he said, we have irrefutable proof now that UFOs are real. And we do. The government has admitted it. They have admitted that UFOs are real. They can't explain them. They don't know what they are. They don't know who's flying them, where they're from. They're real flying machines, and they defy our laws of physics. The government, and he said that same thing. He said, we have irrefutable proof. You can't argue with this. But he doesn't buy alien abduction, and he also doesn't buy the fact that we've even recovered crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. He doesn't buy any of that. And he doesn't buy Bigfoot. Now, who would have thought 30 years ago, if you said, well, okay, what's real, UFOs or Bigfoot? I think if you had to choose one, almost everybody would have chosen Bigfoot. That's my personal feeling. It's an undiscovered primate. It's been hiding out in the forest, But, Steve McIntosh said the same thing most other people do. Where's the body? That's what he wants to know. So I don't know. It's amazing. But at any rate, Ashton Forbes comes on here, and he's talking about free energy. Now, Tom Palladino talks about this too in different terms, but he says one of his two inspirations for his work is Nikola Tesla. And I don't know if you guys know this. So Tesla invented alternating current, which, along with the theory of relativity, is one of the two most mind-bending, mind-boggling theories in all of science. Because I think, I don't know, maybe a physicist or an electrical engineer might disagree with me, but I think that's because they're probably too ensconced in the basic thing of this in ordinary American life. The theory of alternating current is completely irrational. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's not an evolutionary thing. You want to go da 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 da. Oh yeah, let's get the current to alternate back and forth, and that'll work. No. Tesla says he thought of this in a dream, and God, it doesn't, on the surface, it doesn't make any sense. So what it is, and all of electricity in America in the world runs this way now. So basically, Edison more or less he didn't discover electricity, but the practical applications for it. But the thing is, direct current electricity, which you get out of a battery, you basically can't transmit more than 3 or 4 miles before it completely goes kaput. And so in the early days of electrifying the nation, it was extremely inconvenient. You had to have a power station every 3 or 4 miles from anybody using it. And that became very cumbersome. So Tesla comes up with this thing. It's let's reverse the current every 60 times a second. And because of that, now we can transmit it enormous numbers of amounts of distances, thousands of miles on one wire. Now, why does that make any sense? It doesn't. And so Tesla, this is Tesla and Edison were basically locked in a huge struggle for the electricity business in America at the end of the 19th century. And Tesla rightfully won. Edison didn't really have anything. And because we could not have used Edison's system, we just couldn't. It would have been completely, utterly cumbersome and unworkable. So Tesla figured this whole thing out and basically saved electricity on the planet for practical use. But I don't understand how he thought of it. I don't. So the thing is, the reason I'm bringing that up is because Tesla, at the end of his life, he was trying to come up with what he called free energy, and that it was energy produced by the Earth or the ethos or the universe or whatever, and basically capturing it and transmitting it. Now, there's a problem here because his work was funded as an inventor by Westinghouse, and Westinghouse made most of its money selling electricity. So if you have free electricity, you basically can't sell it. So they pulled their funding off of Tesla because they couldn't make any money off what it was working on. And so, and this is this has been a common theme throughout the last 100 years. There's a whole bunch of people who said there's free energy available just out of the ethos, and no one's been able to basically capture it. But what Forbes is saying is he says that his little foray into investigating this aircraft disappearance, that the U.S. military has figured this out. And so I talked to him about the fact there's a guy named Richard Dolan. He's I would say right now he's the premier UFO researcher in the United States. He supplanted Stan Friedman, who died a few years ago. But Dolan says that there's a small cadre of individuals in the U.S. military, several hundred to several thousand people, who are basically living 100 years in the future from the rest of us. And I think he's right. I think that's true. And Forbes does too. So Forbes is saying the U.S. military is able to do this teleportation, and Forbes doesn't actually try to pretend where they teleported the aircraft to. He has some ideas, but that's not really his point. The point is that they did it, and about the fact that they're using this free energy to do so. So Tom, you'll see here in just a moment, he's talking about this. He's using it to try to heal individuals of illnesses. That's what he's doing. But before we do that, we're going to talk about our sponsor here. This is Conch News. This is the front page of Conch News in real time from about half an hour ago. So the deal is, this is a news aggregator. Like there's a whole bunch of news aggregators on the internet. You can find them anywhere. The most famous is probably the Drudge Report, but this runs differently. Not only the Drudge Report, this runs differently from all the rest of them. Because first of all, this is automated, and that sounds like a bad thing, but it isn't in this case. So every 3 hours, the servers at Conch News go out to 75 different news sources and grab the latest articles they've posted, right? All right, since the last trip. So it does this 8 times a day, in the middle of the night too. It grabs the new articles and brings them in and formats them and puts them on the front page. Now the difference here between Conch News and all the other companies that do this is that, if you go to like Liberty or even the Drudge Report, they will list the top 10 articles from Fox News, and then the top 10 articles from Breitbart or wherever the hell they're going, right? Here, it puts these articles in chronological order regardless of the source. So, like, for example, I can tell just by looking here because of the little logos on the bottom left of every article. In this particular page, the top left corner article is from Hot Air. The middle one, which I know does not have a logo, but I know this for that very reason because they don't have one, is the New York Post. By the way, I used to work for this company. Very proud of my association with it. I'm very proud of the product too. It's very cool. It's one of the reasons they're here. And that's my picture on the upper right-hand corner. That's because they sponsor the show. So at any rate, all these articles are laid out on the front page regardless of the source, in chronological order. If you click through on an article, the pictures are from the articles themselves. The headlines are not rewritten. The headlines are also from the articles. So if you click through, you don't go to an interstitial page, you don't go to an ad, you don't go to the front page of the website. You go directly to that article. And also, they made a point here. None of the news sources you use, you have to subscribe to. So you're not locked out of anything. So you'll read everything here. You can spend, even if you only click through on a few articles, you can spend 2 or 3 hours reading the front page of Conch News. That's not unusual at all. This page is very long. This is essentially a one-page website. So also this is very important too. It's not only just free. You don't have to log in. You don't have to subscribe. Nothing. You just go there. It's at conk.com, conch.com, conk.com. So this whole process repeats every 3 hours. So you can go there at 10 a.m., read a bunch of news, spend a bunch of time. If you got time to blow or whatever, you can come back at 3 p.m. 5 hours later. 80% of these articles have changed, and the older ones, the ones who haven't, are all pushed to the bottom of the page. So this is a fantastic news source. This is, if you're an old fart like me, this is as close as you're going to come to a traditional newspaper online. It's fantastic. So go visit that. It's at conk.com, Conch News, conk.com. That's our That's our story. We're sticking to it. And now we're going to play our interview from today. This is Tom Palladino, scalar researcher. Here's 12 seconds of bumper music. Joining us from his home in Bradenton. What is it?
Bradenton.
Oh God, I'm really competent. Bradenton, Florida. Tom Palladino. Okay, so you work with scalar light.
Yes, sir. Scalar light.
Can you explain what this is?
Yes, scalar light. It's a term for the energy of the sun and the stars. This is not electricity. There's two energies in the universe: electromagnetic energy and scalar light, scalar energy. I work with scalar energy, the energy of the stars.
And how did you get into this?
I studied Tesla as a youngster, and I was fortunate enough to meet an American inventor, the Hieronymus family, and they were developing and demonstrating scalar energy instruments. This is a very, what I would say, unique approach to physics. This is a new and emerging branch of physics. You have to undergo private study to understand this.
Okay, so I read about a guy that you apparently list as one of your mentors is Thomas Hieronymus?
Yes, Hieronymus, yes, sir.
Hieronymus. So he worked with something called elliptic energy, right?
Yes, correct.
How is that different from what you're doing?
Those are synonymous terms. He called it elliptic energy. Today in vogue is scalar energy, scalar light, or quantum energy.
But they're basically the same, huh?
Identical, yes, sir. Identical.
Yeah, so now it's really interesting. So what I read is that John Campbell, who was the famous science fiction writer, well, he bought the idea, but he thought it was more, what's the word I'm looking for? He thought it was more psychic than physics.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, he thought it was more paranormal, a psychic instrument. It's not. I'm in my laboratory. This is a modified Hieronymus instrument that I'm pointing to. I learned from a Hieronymus family, and I, if you will, copied in many ways the principles that Galen Hieronymus is using. So what's the point here? These are engineered instruments. This is not a psychic event. I'm not a psychic. I'm a scalar energy researcher.
Okay, so what do you do with this then?
Yeah, okay. That's a good point. So energy, to be very clear, and I think we all realize this, is fundamental. At the top of creation, at the apex of creation is energy. Only energy is fundamental. So if you can work with energy, you have a fundamental control over nature. That's what energy does for us. So this instrument, a scalar energy instrument, allows me to have fundamental control over disease signatures.
Is that one giant instrument behind you or a bunch of little ones?
That's one gigantic instrument behind me, but in my laboratory, I don't know, maybe I can pan off here. There are other instruments that I'm using in the background there. I probably have 20 instruments in this laboratory, but we'll just concentrate on this one behind me.
Is this one based on the Hieronymus, what's called the Hieronymus machine?
Yes, this is developed from the blueprints of Galen Hieronymus. He was, if you will, the brainchild behind this research. I've copied his research in many ways.
Did you know him?
No, I never met him, but I met his wife, Sarah, and I performed an understudy probably for 5 years with her. She opened up the laboratory to her late husband to me. It was a treasure trove.
Uh-huh. So, okay, so now back to, like, what do you do with this then?
Okay. So again, energy allows us to have a mandate, some type of control over nature. I can have a control over disease signatures. All disease begins as an information system or as a scalar energy signature. Now, working with a Hieronymus instrument, we don't work with people. The instruments are not designed to work with people. The instruments are designed to work with photographs of people. A photograph carries a signature. A photograph is as unique as my fingerprint. My photograph carries a signature of me, and my disease signatures are on my photograph in real time. If I had rheumatoid arthritis, this photograph would register rheumatoid arthritis as a specific disease signature.
I'm reading through your website. So did I get this right here? It doesn't matter when the photo was taken. Is that correct?
That's correct. Correct, because in this realm of quantum energy, there is no time. Everything coalesces to the present moment. This is not electricity or magnetism. This is a different dimension. This is what some people say beyond the space-time continuum, that we're not subject to time and space. That's correct. So a photograph is not subject to time and space. This photograph is 3 or 4 years old, but it reports me today at this precise moment in time.
So basically, do I get this right? That the energy or the test you perform with the equipment basically kind of like chases you down?
Yes, it does. In present time, yes. By the way, great point. My predecessor, Hieronymus, was working with the government, with NASA. Hieronymus was able to monitor the Apollo 11 astronauts by their photograph. The photograph obviously reports the signature of the astronauts. They were 250,000 miles away. It doesn't matter. Their photograph still carried their signature.
Yeah. So now this is kind of an aside here, but I'm just curious in your thoughts on this. There's a lot of physics people who are saying that basically information is like the fifth power of the fifth thing of the universe. How does that play into what you're doing? Oh, I should hold on. I gotta clarify this for the people. I can't say the fifth thing. It's the fifth energy in the universe. Or does this have anything to do with what you're doing?
Absolutely, because scalar energy is at the top of creation, and everything else, gravity and molecular bonds and all other types of forces, are a subset of scalar energy. Even electricity and magnetism are a derivative of scalar energy. My work is non-physical. Scalar energy is non-physical. My predecessor, Galen Hieronymus, considered this as plasma. What is plasma? It's non-physical energy. It's information. Exactly.
Well, I don't know, but Tom, I don't know if plasma is considered non-physical information. There's a physical aspect to plasma. I mean, there is.
There is, and you could call that an electromagnetic display, but when you're looking at plasma in its primal form, it's scalar energy, which is non-physical. In other words, at the very core of our stars is nothing but plasma, scalar energy, just bright scalar energy. It is not physical. There's no electrons involved whatsoever. So it depends on how you define your terms.
Okay, and also the thing is, so you mentioned on your website too, you're talking about the quantum physical aspect of this. So, well, quantum physics is just plain weird. What am I trying to say here? Is there a quantum physical aspect to what you're doing or not?
No, there's not. The energy itself is spirit. It's non-physical. Now, it does interact with our physical world. To be very clear, the physical manifestation in this universe is at the end of the train. It's the caboose. If you look at the universe, why is it all space? The distance between stars. Well, that space is scalar energy. So you really have to concentrate on the space of the universe, which is the energy of the universe. The actual planet or the moons of the universe, that's just the very tail end of creation.
So does this have anything to do with what's called dark energy at all? I mean,
it's believed, yes. We probably will define those two terms in a synonymous sense in the future. Dark energy, meaning we just can't put our finger on it. It's so nebulous. Scalar energy is nebulous.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, I want to point out for the people watching that is very true. Basically, dark energy has been theorized, but nobody really knows what it is. Right.
Yeah, it's never been quantified. And I believe this energy is consciousness or the information system of the universe. Now, can you measure consciousness? No. Can you measure the information field of the universe? No. There's no basic unit.
I've had talks with other people on the show before, scientists and such. There's also another theory going on right now that consciousness basically keeps the universe open. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree totally. You need constant information, constant communication to have a organized universe. The minute you have a flaw in the universal energy or the universal communication consciousness, you have a fracture in the universe. That's never happened. Why? We have perfect communication, hence we have perfect order in the universe.
On your website, you do refer to quite a few Christian things. Is that just a personal thing of yours, or do you think this whole thing has something to do with that? Or
it is my personal belief, but it is also what I'm proving out, that this is the energy, the Christ consciousness that has been spoken of so much. If there is a heaven, it's a non-physical spiritual state of being. I believe scalar energy is the non-physical perfection of heaven. In other words, if you and I went to heaven, there wouldn't be one electron present. It would be all scalar energy. There's no electromagnetic energy in heaven. What's the point? It's a different dimension. Scalar energy is not electromagnetic energy.
yeah, okay. So now let's go back to the photograph. How do you help people by doing these photographic readings? But first of all, may I ask, how do you do the reading? Like, how does it even done?
I don't. I simply take a person's photograph, print it on a piece of paper, and I place it inside the instrument.
Yeah. Now, I'm sorry. When I said the word reading, I meant the basically the instrument, your equipment does the reading, right?
Correct. The detection, yes, the identification is by the equipment. Now, to be clear, I'm not a medical professional. I do not have any, if you will, human action in this process. The energy instrument acts upon the photographic force field, and the energy, if you will, finds the disease and negates the disease signature. There's no human action. Very good.
All right.
Now,
so we were saying about the fact that basically scalar energy chases you down.
Yes,
right?
it does. Yes,
right.
it does.
So does a person, if you're, I'm going to say for lack of a term, I'm going to call it a reading. What do you call it? It's like,
just treatment, reading, call it what you want. Go ahead.
Treatment, right? Okay. When somebody's being treated via your instruments, can they tell?
Yes, many people feel a surge of energy. Many people, after I work with them, their sinuses clear up because we identify bacteria, we negate bacteria. Many people say that the dream state is enhanced within a day or two.
Yeah, okay, I got that, but I'm really curious about this. Can people actually tell when the machine's doing the reading? Like,
yes.
There's a you're familiar with the term quantum entanglement, that basically,
yes.
You can communicate across the universe instantaneously. If you got the picture in the machine and somebody's off in Carolina somewhere or New York State or something, can they actually tell when the machine's running?
If they're sensitive, yes, they can. Many times in the morning, I begin in the sessions, and the people say they feel that surge of energy in the morning here in the United States. So to answer your question, if you're very sensitive, you know when the instrument is on.
Huh. It's interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, well, okay. So let me just play skeptic here and devil's advocate. What do you say about people who say? I mean, there are very few people doing what you're doing, right?
That's correct.
And why do you think that is?
Because it's so poorly understood. And if you want to get involved in this, you have to understudy under somebody like Hieronymus, or you have to do all the work yourself. Now, I've been at this for 50 years, and with the exception of Hieronymus and Tesla, I've had to do everything on my own.
Uh-huh.
There is
hold on, I'm assuming you didn't know Tesla, right?
No, I did not, but I read his books. I read his books.
Well, I actually checked. I mean, Hieronymus died in 88, so I thought maybe there was a chance you knew him.
I just missed him. I met his wife in 93. That's a good point.
Yeah.
What's my point? The two experts that I know are Galen Hieronymus and Nikola Tesla. I never met either one, but I read their notes.
Yeah.
Now, to answer your question, why are there so few people involved in this? You've got to spend 50, 60 years developing instruments and then understanding how the energy works. Now, to be blunt, how many people are going to work without a paycheck?
No, believe me, I know.
They're not.
I'm very familiar with this.
and end of story. End of story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, what drives you?
God promised me success. I'm seeing great success, but you're right. This is a solitary path. There are no other scalar light researchers that I know of that I can work with. I don't know of anybody. Nobody has accomplished what I have.
Literally nobody that you know of.
There's a few, but one of them is in Germany. He's retired, Professor Mel, and the other scalar light researchers, in my estimation, are working with electricity. So I can't work with somebody who's working with electricity. This is not an electrical instrument.
Have you ever taken on proteges yourself?
No. Why? Because nobody wants to develop the time and energy for this. Nobody wants to spend 30 years without a paycheck to do this for the benefit of mankind. I've been at this for 50 years. There is no company paycheck. There is no company payroll.
I want to go back to your instruments, though. They don't run off electricity?
They do. I'll explain. Dr. Hieronymus engineered these instruments to work off of AC electricity and then convert that AC electricity into what we call a standard wave, a scalar standing wave. That's a double helix. That's a photograph of scalar energy. That's a double helix. So from electricity, we can convert it into this double helix of energy.
So when you put the pictures in the machine, the photographs, does it generate like the scalar energy photograph, or how does that work?
Yeah, as soon as I place a person's photograph in that instrument, they experience a surge of energy. Let me explain. If I hold this light bulb in my hand, there's so much energy coming from that instrument that can illuminate my light bulb. So that identical energy that's going into the light bulb is going into my photograph. So it's not a chemical process, it's informational. And that, you hit the nail on the head. This has nothing to do with the chemical level. It's a new level of science, scalar science, that is entirely informational.
And that's the reason I asked, because I thought, well, you still need electricity to power the instruments, even though electricity isn't actually involved. That's what I was thinking.
That's correct. Galen discovered that electricity can be converted into scalar, or scalar can be downgraded into electricity. He was the original theorist in that regard.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so, all right, I'm just bouncing all over the place here. Excuse me. So this the eloptic energy that he came up with is basically the same thing you're doing. Correct.
It's identical. These instruments behind me were engineered off of his plans initially. Yes.
Okay. What else do people need to know? I'm asking you now.
Yeah, I get it. Keep in mind, this is information. It's God's information. There's no human input. When I place a person's photograph inside the instrument can look for, say, the cancer signature and negate the information of cancer. So we're not working at the biological level. We're working at a different level, informational, and we're able to detect and negate disease signatures. Eventually, the world is going to realize that this is the best way to health, not through a biological interface, but through an informational interface.
I totally buy what you're talking about, but let me ask you, if you've been doing this 50 years, why do people get cancer?
Well,
you have any theories?
Yeah, it's the base pair mutation. It's either addition, deletion, or substitution of a base pair. Now, I'm going to go back to this motif. That's a double helix. Now, what do we know that is also a double helix, Jim? It's DNA.
DNA, right.
Okay. So what do I propose? That a scalar wave can correct a minor scalar wave, which is DNA. What am I saying? DNA is created and maintained by scalar energy. The ratio and proportion of DNA is identical to a scalar wave. So what is my point? Scalar waves create and maintain DNA.
That's not so. I have a lot of people on the show who deal with UFOs and extraterrestrials. There's a lot of, and there's a lot of mainstream scientists now who are starting to think that DNA is basically like the pattern of the entire universe.
Yes.
That maybe not all, but most life in the universe is probably DNA based.
Okay. So the Fibonacci sequence is incorporated into a scalar wave. There's a major groove and a minor groove, and the phi value 1.618. What am I getting at? The scalar wave is the Fibonacci sequence in and of itself that imparts the Fibonacci sequence or fractals throughout the universe. The reason we have fractals is because scalar energy is a fractal.
Yeah. So so we got, if we're dealing with when I'm a double helix information everywhere, is that just the fingerprint of God?
It is. It's the light of God. That's why I'm a Catholic. That's why I go back to my faith. If God is light, what type of light is he, Jim? He's not electricity. God is divine light, scalar energy, consciousness, Christ consciousness is the divine light. That is divine energy, not electricity.
And I don't want to put you on the spot here, but do you discern any difference between Christ and God or not?
Christ is God.
Okay, that's what I want to know. All right. So okay, this has been really fascinating. Is there anything else you want us to know?
This technology will change the world. This is free energy, people. And we don't need satellites or cell phone towers for this energy. It's free energy from the stars, and you don't need a grid system. This energy should eventually solve our energy crisis.
Now, I have to bring this up because I just had this guy on the show a week ago. His name is Ashton Forbes, and he contends that the U.S. military has figured out how to use free energy. That is, the energy. Are you in touch, or are you plugged into any of this?
No, I'm not. I don't have any affiliation with any government, nor do I want any affiliation. Am I surprised that other groups have surreptitiously developed some type of instruments? No, that would surprise me at least.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Right? Yeah. So he makes a very good case for it. I mean, I have to say, it's like he's kind of has a lot of evidence, so it's interesting.
Yeah. I'm sure there's many secret engagements out there, secret missions that we don't know about. I'm very public, obviously, about my work. I want the world to get on board. My goal as a humanitarian is to help people. I'm not trying to hide my secrets.
Do you think there's any chance that what you're doing or the technology behind it could be used for non-good, or I'll just use the term evil purposes?
Yes. Both Galen Hieronymus and I consider this a very powerful tool. And that's why he's never released his secrets, nor have I released my secrets. Scalar energy can be used for good or evil. Yes.
I'm sorry, say that last thing again.
Scalar energy can be used for good or evil.
Interesting. Well, you said that you had a little special going on your website. You want to briefly talk about it?
Sure. My website is scalarlight.com. Anybody in the world can visit the website. We will allow you to register. Email us your photograph. We'll treat you for free. Your photographic force field. Again, you don't come to my office. Your photograph is your constitution. Your soul, mind, and body is imprinted on a photograph. So scalarlight.com. Send us your photograph through the email process on our website, and you'll receive 15 days of session.
Tom, thank you. This has been really interesting. I really admire you. You've devoted your life to something that most people would not do.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to say, it's pretty cool.
It's a lot of work. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Tom Palladino of Scalar Light Research. Thanks for joining us. Now, this is really, really weird here. Our show's done. We're done. This might be one of the shortest shows you've ever done. But the reason is, like I said, we're actually testing on a new process here, and we have to have the show done in 40 minutes. So we got 2 minutes left. I want to point out tomorrow, it's our 1-year anniversary. You call in. We didn't take any calls tonight. You can call in. Jeff Myers joining us from Calling News. Santa's going to be here. I got some of the regulars I think will call in too, more or less regulars. Tim Conaway, those crazy people, that we have on here on a regular basis, and you and your phone calls too. So I hope you do that. We're taking Thursday off. My mother turned 100 last week. She's moving to a assisted living facility on the 1st of the month, and that's tomorrow. It's Thursday. So yeah, finally after 100 years. Who would have thought it? Next Wednesday, Martin Willis from Podcast UFO is going to be here. That should be interesting too. He will tell us stuff that we've probably never heard before. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Always, we'll see you tomorrow night. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you, wherever you are. Take care. See you tomorrow.